The receipt was dated March 18th, 2017, 7 days after my sister Lena died. I found it stapled to a garment bag at a dry cleaner on Tremont Street, a few blocks south of Boston Common. Lena's husband, Mark, had given me the claim ticket that morning. We were sorting through their apartment in South Boston, and he said he couldn't handle another errand. That sounded reasonable. Lena had died after a sudden medical emergency at home. She was 34. There had been no warning, just a call before dawn, and a week of relatives bringing food nobody ate. Mark looked worn out. The cleaner was narrow and too warm. It smelled of wet wool and hot starch. A radio behind the counter played a tax software commercial while a machine in back made a metallic knock every few seconds. The employee was named Victor. He was around 60, with reading glasses on a cord. I handed him the ticket. "You're picking up for Lena?" "I'm her sister." His expression changed. He glanced at the ticket again, then used a switch to move the clothing rack. Plastic bags slid past with a dry whisper. He stopped the rail and brought out 4 pieces. I had expected a coat and maybe a blouse. Instead, there were 3 dresses and a cream jacket. I didn't recognize any of them. Lena worked events at a hotel near Copley Square and owned clothes I never saw. Still, these looked wrong. One was dark green with a low back. One was red and much shorter than anything she wore. The last was a heavy black dress. Victor laid them across the counter. "These were all together?" I asked. "Same account, 2 orders." He pulled a paper receipt from the clear sleeve. The jacket and green dress had come in first. The red and black dresses were dropped off on March 18th. Lena died on the 11th. Victor stopped moving. The machine in back knocked once, then again. "I'm sorry," he said. "Who brought these in?" He looked toward the front window, where gray slush was packed along the curb. "Her husband." I asked if he was sure. "Mark, tall guy, brown coat. He came here before." Mark was tall and owned a brown coat. I tried to make it harmless. Maybe he had found dirty clothes after Lena died and dropped them off without thinking. Then Victor said Mark had come in the previous day to ask if the order was ready. When Victor said yes, Mark told him somebody else would pick it up. That bothered me. Mark had acted like the ticket had been sitting on Lena's desk for weeks. I called him. It rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. I texted him a picture of the dresses and asked where they came from. His reply arrived almost at once. Found them in the hall closet, probably hers from work events. "Thanks for grabbing them. Lena's apartment did not have a hall closet. I had helped her move in. There was a coat rack by the door and a narrow utility cabinet. I had also spent 2 days sorting her things. There was no hall closet." Victor asked if I was okay. "I don't know yet." I asked to inspect the clothes before paying. He unhooked the bags. The green dress smelled of solvent and sweet perfume, like vanilla mixed with cigarette smoke. Lena wore a sharp citrus scent. The red dress was at least 2 sizes smaller than Lena wore. Its label had been cut out, leaving 2 white threads at the collar. The black dress had a brown stain near the lower side seam. It was about the size of a quarter and partly hidden in a fold. A yellow tag beside it said, "Stain remains." "Was that there when it came in?" I asked. Victor leaned closer. "Yes." "What is it?" "Could be wine, could be blood. We don't test, we treat." A long blonde hair was trapped inside the bag, pressed against the black fabric. It ran from the waist almost to the hem. Lena's hair was dark brown and cut at her chin. I could hear tires moving through wet pavement outside. The radio switched to a freezing rain warning. "Did Mark say anything when he dropped it off?" "He said the stains were from a party." "Did he come alone?" Victor hesitated. "There was a woman outside. She stayed near the car. I didn't see her face." "What car?" "Dark SUV. Massachusetts plates." Mark drove a gray Ford Escape. Victor checked the time in his system. Mark had brought the black dress in just after 6 on March 18th. That evening, Mark had left my mother's house in Quincy around 5:30, saying he needed to feed Lena's cat. He returned after 7. The cleaner was less than 15 minutes from the apartment. I paid cash. Victor folded the receipts into an envelope and wrote his phone number on the back. "Keep the tags on," he said. "If this becomes police business, they may ask." Outside, the rain had turned grainy and cold. I carried the bags half a block before stopping under the awning of a closed bakery. My hands smelled metallic from the hangers. I called Mark again. This time he answered. "You got everything?" he asked. "Where did the dresses come from?" "I told you. The closet." "There is no hall closet." A pause. "The bedroom closet, then." Lena had stuff everywhere. "The red one isn't her size." "Maybe it belonged to a friend." "Which friend?" He sighed. "Why are you doing this right now?" "There's blood on one of them." A bus passed and sprayed dirty water along the curb. "You don't know it's blood," he said. I had not told him what Victor thought. I had only called it blood, and Mark answered as if the possibility had already been discussed. "Why did you bring them in after Lena died?" "I found clothes that needed cleaning. I wasn't checking dates." "Whose clothes?" "Lena's." "The blonde hair isn't hers." He went quiet again. Then he said, "Leave them there." "What?" "Tell the guy you made a mistake. Don't bring them to your mother's house." I had not said where I planned to take them. "Why not?" "Because she doesn't need to see stained clothes." His voice was still soft, but each word came out separate. I said I was keeping them. "Don't," he said. No explanation followed. I ended the call and went back inside. Victor locked the front door when I told him what Mark had said. It was only 4. A customer pulled the handle a minute later, and Victor pointed to the closed sign. He let me call a lawyer my family knew from the back room. Her name was Denise. She told me not to put the clothes loose in my car, not to handle them again, and not to let Mark know where they were. She knew an investigator who could collect them properly. Victor placed each garment bag inside a clean plastic cover. He sealed the edges with packing tape and signed across the tape with a marker. I signed too. It felt excessive. 1 stain, 1 hair. Then someone tried the front door. The handle moved again, harder. Through a gap in the hanging clothes, I saw Mark outside. Rain ran off his brown coat. He pulled the handle once, then pressed close to the glass. Victor turned off the backroom light. Mark knocked 3 times with 1 finger. My phone rang. His name filled the screen. "Don't answer," Victor whispered. Mark moved to the window and cupped his hands around his eyes. I could see part of his face between 2 rows of clothes. He scanned the shop. He knew I had gone back inside. The call stopped. A text appeared. "I can see your car." My car was in a garage near the theater district, almost half a mile away. I had never told Mark I was driving. A gray Ford Escape rolled slowly past the shop less than a minute later. It turned at the next intersection and disappeared. Victor did not unlock the door. Denise sent an investigator named Cal. He photographed the seals before taking the clothes. Victor printed the transaction record and gave a statement. The security camera kept video for 7 days. The March 18th footage was gone. I stayed with Denise that night. Mark sent 6 messages. The first 2 were polite. The next ones accused me of trying to make him look guilty while he was grieving. The last message said, "You have no idea what Lena was doing." I did not reply. The lab results took 9 days. The stain was human blood. The blonde hair had a root attached. It came from a woman and did not match Lena's DNA. Cal contacted police before showing me the full report. The blood belonged to a woman named Rachel. She was 29 and had been reported missing from Somerville in early February, about a month before Lena died. Her family last heard from her near Davis Square. A detective said Rachel had worked private events at Lena's hotel. I asked if they knew each other. He said they were checking. By then, Mark had stopped answering everyone. My mother went to the apartment with police and found Lena's cat alone. 2 dresser drawers were empty, and Mark's passport was gone. His Ford Escape was found the next morning in a long-term lot near Logan Airport. A damp gas receipt from Revere was inside. No luggage was in the vehicle. Airport footage showed Mark entering Terminal E at 5:40 a.m. with a black backpack. Police would not tell us whether he boarded a flight. They searched the apartment again and took a cardboard box from the basement storage cage. Nobody told us what was inside. The black dress stayed in evidence. Several months later, Victor called me. A blonde woman had come into the cleaner asking for the clothes from Lena's account. She carried a printed copy of the original claim ticket. Victor refused to give her anything and called the detective. She left before police arrived. He asked whether I knew who she was. I said no. The cleaner changed owners the next year. Mark has never contacted my family again. The red and green dresses were returned to me. They are still sealed in Victor's outer bags inside a storage bin. The original receipt remains attached to the black dress in police evidence. March 18th, 2017, 7 days after Lena died. One night I stayed at Jenna's house. Her dog woke me up by growling at a door I had already checked twice. It was July 2021 while Jenna and her sister were in Florida for 10 days. She lived west of Richmond near Short Pump, in a subdivision of pale-sided houses and streets that curved around drainage ponds. I knew her from work. She asked me to stay over and take care of Murphy, her yellow lab. Murphy was 8, overweight and friendly. Jenna said he slept in the upstairs hall and would probably follow me around at first. The house had a front door, a kitchen door to the deck, and an outside basement door beside the garage. 6 concrete steps led down below ground level. Wet leaves gathered around a drain at the bottom. Before leaving, Jenna showed me the alarm panel. The doors had sensors, along with most of the first floor windows. She also left an old iPad connected to the camera above the garage. If the alarm goes off, the code is under the router, she said. It won't. This neighborhood is boring. The first evening was normal. I ordered Thai food, watched TV, and walked Murphy after dark. The pavement still smelled hot from the sun. Cicadas were going so hard near the pond that I could barely hear his tags jingling. I went to bed around midnight with my door open. Murphy lay in the hallway. At about 2:30, I woke to his nails tapping downstairs. Then he growled. It was low and steady. I assumed he had seen a raccoon through the kitchen window, but when I went down, he was standing at the top of the basement stairs. I turned on the light. Murphy went ahead of me and stopped in front of the outside basement door. His legs were stiff and his nose was pointed at the gap below it. The deadbolt was locked. The alarm panel showed every zone secure. I looked through the little window in the door. All I could see was the concrete wall and the steps rising toward the yard. "Come on, Murph." He stayed there. I opened the door a few inches. The alarm began its exit countdown. Hot, damp air came inside, carrying the smell of mud and old leaves. The stairwell was empty. I closed the door, reset the alarm, and got Murphy upstairs with a treat. Jenna had mentioned frogs getting trapped near the drain after rain, so I decided he had heard one scraping around. The next morning, the window above the kitchen sink was latched. I remembered leaving it open a few inches while washing dishes. I assumed I had closed it without thinking. Nothing happened all day. I worked from the dining room while Murphy slept under the table. By dinner, the locked window felt stupid. The second night, Murphy started growling a little after 1. I was still awake. His collar jingled in the hall. Then he walked downstairs and stopped at the basement again. The alarm showed secure. I checked the camera app. It showed a moth hitting the lens and me taking Murphy outside. No person had come near the house. I went down with the fireplace poker and checked the basement. The furnace clicked on while I was near it, and I hit my elbow against the wall. The outside door was locked. Murphy came upstairs eventually, but he slept beside my bed facing the hallway. In the morning, 2 front room windows were secured with their small vent tabs. I had pushed those tabs in the day before so I could open the windows fully while cleaning up some spilled potting soil. Both tabs were out again. I stood there trying to remember touching them later. I could not. Upstairs, my toothpaste cap was on the left side of the sink. I always put it on the right. Jenna's blue face wash was also in front of the faucet, instead of against the wall. It sounded like nothing. Still, I kept my bathroom things in a neat row so I would not mix them with hers. I called Jenna. She answered from a hotel balcony. I could hear traffic and her sister talking behind her. I asked who had a spare key. "My parents do," she said. "Why?" I told her about Murphy and the windows. I left out the toothpaste. She went quiet long enough that I checked the screen to see if the call had dropped. "Is the basement door locked?" "Yes." "The top locked too?" "There's one deadbolt." "No, look above the frame." I went downstairs. A small brass slide bolt was mounted along the top edge of the door, almost hidden by the trim. It was open. "I didn't know this was here," I said. "I thought I showed you." "You didn't. Who else has keys?" "My parents, me, and maybe Ryan." Ryan was her ex-boyfriend. I had met him once at a work Christmas party. He spent most of it outside smoking. What does maybe mean? He changed the locks when I bought the house. He installed that basement door too. I asked for his key back. Did he give it back? One of them. I stared at the slide bolt. Jenna said Ryan lived in Chesterfield now and had not contacted her in months. Then she asked whether the alarm had gone off. "Not once. He helped wire part of it before I switched companies," she said. I wanted to leave right then. Instead, Jenna called her dad. Her parents lived 40 minutes away, and I felt ridiculous making him drive over because a dog had growled at a door. Bill arrived around noon. He checked the entrances and opened the basement door while the alarm was armed. The siren went off. He said heat could shift the window frames and Murphy might be hearing squirrels. Then Bill noticed a thin gap near the basement door's lower hinge. He pressed the corner. The panel still read secure. "Sensors mounted too high," he said. "The bottom can move without breaking contact." The gap was too small for a person. Bill tightened 2 screws, locked the slide bolt, and left. I felt fine while his truck was in the driveway. As soon as he left, I started checking rooms again. That evening, I photographed every window latch and the bathroom counter. I wanted to know whether I was forgetting things. At 12:48, Murphy stood up in the kitchen. He walked to the top of the basement stairs and listened. His ears lifted. A soft scrape came from below. It sounded like cardboard being dragged across concrete. Murphy began growling. This time, his teeth showed. I opened the camera app. The driveway was empty. Branches moved at the edge of the frame. The alarm still read secure. I called Bill. He did not answer. Then I called Jenna and whispered, even though I was on the first floor. Murphy heard it again. "Call the police." "What do I say?" "Say someone might be in the basement." While she was speaking, the light at the bottom of the stairs switched off. I had left it on. I backed into the kitchen. Murphy stayed at the stairs, growling into the dark. I called 911. 2 officers arrived about 7 minutes later. I waited near the mailbox with Murphy, wet grass against my sandals and mosquitoes on my ankles. One officer entered through the front. The other went around the side. They searched the house. No one was there. Both basement locks were secure. They checked the closets, garage, and attic hatch. One officer asked about basement windows. There were 2 small windows near the ceiling. One was behind the water heater. The other was in a storage closet behind plastic bins. The first was locked. A shelf blocked the closet window. The officer moved 2 bins, shined his light through, and said it looked closed. They suggested a bad light switch, or mice inside the wall. I did not mention the toothpaste. At that point, I was embarrassed enough. After they left, I locked myself upstairs with Murphy and pushed a chair under the knob. I slept for maybe 2 hours. In the morning, the basement bolt was still locked. My toothpaste was inside the bathroom sink. The cap had been screwed on halfway. Jenna's blue face wash was lying on its side near the edge of the counter. I opened the picture from the night before. The toothpaste had been upright beside my toothbrush. The blue bottle had been against the wall. I packed my bag without calling anyone. I put Murphy in the back seat, then walked through the house, turning on every light, including the basement fixtures and the bulb above the stove. Morning sun was already coming through the blinds, but I left everything on. I took Jenna's iPad with me and parked around the corner near the entrance to the subdivision. Then I called her. "I'm not spending another night there." She did not argue. She told me to bring Murphy to her parents. While we spoke, she checked the camera settings from her phone. The garage camera had a wider angle than I realized. Behind some shrubs at the far left, it showed the top of the basement stairwell. I watched the live feed. For 20 minutes, nothing moved except leaves. Then a man's hand appeared above the edge of the stairwell. A few seconds later, his head rose behind the shrubs. He climbed out through the basement window in a dark t-shirt and tan work pants. He crouched beside the house, checked the driveway, then disappeared along the fence. Jenna said, "That's Ryan." Police came back. The storage closet window had a broken latch. The shelf was screwed to the wall, but its bottom section lifted out, leaving enough room to crawl through. Beside the water heater, they found a plugged-in phone charger, food, a jug of water, and a folded gray blanket. None of it was Jenna's. Ryan admitted the charger and blanket were his. He said he had left them while working on the basement months earlier. He denied entering the house and claimed he was only collecting tools from under the deck. The camera showed him climbing out of the basement window 20 minutes after I drove away. He never explained the toothpaste. Jenna sold the house the next spring. Behind the storage shelf, a contractor found scratches beside the window and a clean rectangle in the dust where a phone had been set down. It was October 2021 during the overnight shift at a medical supply warehouse on the west side of Indianapolis. I was working alone in the shipping office when a truck arrived at 1:17 in the morning with no appointment on the schedule. That was the first thing that bothered me. Our warehouse handled medications that required extra paperwork and controlled access. We weren't a hospital, but we stored enough high-value products that every delivery had to be cleared before a driver even reached the dock. Usually I knew the company name, the truck number, and the person showing up before I saw their headlights in the yard. That night, I heard the backup alarm outside. I looked through the office window and saw a white box truck sitting near Dock 4. The security lights over the yard were washing everything in a pale yellow glow. The pavement was wet from earlier rain, and the tires left dark marks as the driver adjusted his position. I checked the computer. Nothing. No delivery. No pickup. No transfer. I grabbed the radio and called the new forklift guy, Evan, who was working in the storage aisles. "Hey, did you hear anything about a late truck?" A few seconds passed. "No. Why?" "Because we have one sitting outside." Evan came around the corner wearing a reflective vest over a hoodie. He had only been there for about 2 weeks, so he was still learning where everything was. He was the kind of guy who always wanted to prove he could handle things. He told everyone he had worked warehouse jobs before, and he talked like every problem had a simple answer. He looked out the window. Maybe they sent it from the main office. They would have called. He shrugged. Could be a mistake. The driver knocked on the side door instead of using the intercom. That was unusual. Drivers almost always waited at the dock entrance. I opened the small window in the door, but kept it locked. The man standing outside looked to be in his 40s. He wore a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He held a clipboard with a stack of papers clipped to it. "Delivery for you guys," he said. "What's the appointment number?" He glanced down. "Give me a second." He flipped through the papers. The pages moved fast, like he already knew where he was going. "I've got the authorization right here." He pushed the papers toward the window. The documents looked right at first. That was the problem. They looked like the kind of thing I had seen hundreds of times. The company name matched one of our suppliers. The signatures were in the right places. The shipment numbers looked normal. I scanned the page again. Something didn't line up. "The truck isn't on my schedule." The driver smiled a little. Your system probably hasn't updated. This happens. I didn't like that answer, but it wasn't impossible. In 2021, with shipping delays and companies moving things around, mistakes happened all the time. Evan leaned closer. Looks legit. I looked at him. You checked all that in 5 seconds? He laughed. I've seen enough paperwork. The driver tapped the clipboard against his hand. I've got to get unloaded. I have another stop after this. I asked for the seal number on the back of the truck. Every shipment like this had one. It was supposed to match the paperwork before we opened anything. The driver gave me the number. I wrote it down. Then I looked at the paper. The numbers were different. Not by 1 digit. The whole seal number was wrong. I pointed at it. This doesn't match. The driver didn't answer right away. He looked past me into the warehouse. That was the moment I stopped thinking it was a simple paperwork problem. What? He looked back. Sorry, I thought I saw someone. There was nobody behind me. Evan stepped forward. Could be an old seal number. Maybe they changed it before shipping. I stared at him. You can't just change that. He lowered his voice. Come on, we don't want to send this guy away if everything else checks out. That was exactly the kind of thing I would have said if I wasn't standing there with the wrong number in front of me. There was a reasonable explanation for almost everything. A late truck, a bad update, a wrong number. I had seen mistakes before. I unlocked the outer gate but didn't open the dock door. I need to verify this. The driver nodded and walked back toward the truck. I went to the security computer and pulled up the camera feed. Our cameras covered the docks, the yard, and the employee entrances. I checked the angle facing the truck. The box truck was there. Then I noticed the car. A small sedan was parked near the far fence behind the truck. Its headlights were off. It wasn't close enough to be obvious from the office window. I leaned closer to the monitor. Do you see that? Evan looked over my shoulder. What? The car. He stared for a moment. Probably another driver waiting. At 1 in the morning? He didn't answer. The truck driver came back to the door. Everything okay? I closed the camera window, still verifying. His face changed for a second. It was quick, but I saw it. The relaxed look disappeared. How long is that going to take? I don't know. He looked annoyed now, not angry, just impatient. That bothered me more. I called my supervisor, but it went straight to voicemail. Most people on the night team didn't answer after a certain hour unless something was already wrong. The driver knocked again. Evan, he said, can you get the door open? We can start moving this. Evan looked at me. I shook my head. No. He frowned. Why not? Because the seal is wrong. He has paperwork. So does everyone who gets caught doing something. Evan didn't say anything after that. He just looked away. A minute later, the warehouse lights near the rear loading area flickered. I turned toward the hallway. What was that? Evan walked over. The cameras back there are probably glitching. I checked the security screen. The rear yard camera was black, then the one beside it went black too. My stomach dropped. I went to the security panel. The camera system showed no error. It looked like someone had turned those feeds off manually. Evan. He didn't respond. I turned around. He was standing at the door leading into the warehouse. His hand was on the handle. What are you doing? He looked surprised that I asked. I'm opening it. No. He pulled harder. I moved fast and grabbed the radio. The driver outside heard us. You guys having a problem in there? I didn't answer. Evan looked at me. You are making this way bigger than it is. I backed away from the door. That was when I understood he wasn't confused. He was waiting. I ran to the dock controls and opened the empty dock at the far end of the building. The truck driver started moving toward it, probably thinking I had finally agreed. Instead, I guided him into the empty bay and lowered the security gate behind him. The truck was inside. The driver was not. He had stopped before the line. I hit the emergency lock. The dock gate dropped. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then the driver started pounding on the door. "Open this." I ignored him. Evan ran toward the control room. I followed. He was already at the security panel. "What are you doing?" He looked at me. Nothing. Just that same blank expression. He had a cable in his hand. He had disconnected the camera system. I pushed the door shut and locked it from the outside. "Evan," he grabbed the handle. "Open the door." I didn't answer. I moved to the return section and pulled the metal gate across the entrance. It wasn't meant to hold someone inside, but it had a lock for inventory control. Evan reached the gate a few seconds later. "What are you doing?" I locked it. He grabbed the bars. "You can't leave me here." I backed away. The roof access was the only way out without passing the dock area. I climbed the stairs, crossed the top walkway, and pulled myself onto the roof. Cold air hit my face. The parking lot lights below were still on. I could see the truck through the loading area windows. I could not see the driver. When police and my supervisor arrived later, the truck was gone. The dock door was open. The fake documents were still on the floor near the office. Evan had broken the small window in the returns area and left before anyone got inside. The next morning, the company checked the paperwork and confirmed none of the shipment numbers were real. They also checked the cameras. The rear yard footage was missing. The only video left showed the truck entering the yard. It showed the car behind it, and it showed someone walking from that car toward the warehouse before the camera went dark. I quit 2 weeks later. The company never gave me a clear answer about how Evan got hired. They said his application looked normal and his background check came back clean. The truck was never found. The strange part was the paperwork. A few days after the incident, I was cleaning out my locker and found a copy of the delivery form folded inside a box where I kept old work gloves. I had never put it there. The page was the same one the driver handed me, except there was one extra line at the bottom. It had the name of our warehouse, the correct address, and a signature from someone who was supposed to approve the delivery. The signature wasn't mine. It wasn't my supervisor's either. That's all for this video. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know in the comments which story you like the most. Don't forget to take a look at the other videos on the channel too. Catch you next time. Bye.